Ta-da!
Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in Lund, Sweden. For this episode of Musings of a Philogamer, we will be doing a follow-up to the preceding episode on the underrepresentation of women in wargaming. If you have not yet seen that episode, I recommend that you go and watch that first and then come back to this episode afterwards. As part of the project now of addressing the underrepresentation of women in wargaming, what we have done here at Grey Army Gaming is reached out to make contact with various female wargamers in order to ask them two questions. The first question is, what do you think are the reasons underlying the underrepresentation of women in wargaming? And second, what do you think can be done to address these issues? Karen from Dark Wizard Gaming sent us a very good response in which she had some very interesting insights, but also gave us 4 really good concrete pieces of advice for including beginners in general, but women in particular in the wargaming hobby. For your viewing enjoyment now, we will include her discussion, her video response that she has made for us.
Hello, my name is Karen and I'm from Colorado. Matthew with Grey Army Gaming had asked me to help him with this segment with women in wargaming. I'm going to combine basically his questions into one. Why do we think that women are not represented in wargaming and what we can do about it? This not only pertains to just women, but all new gamers in general as well. I think a lot of people, when they are teaching someone who is new to the game, they forget what it was like when they first started. When you're good at something, it's easy just to overlook, when you started, how long it took you, because you were slow as well. It's amazing when you're trying to learn the rules, trying to keep your stats straight, your numbers straight, your rules, what you can and can't do. It is very overwhelming. And I think a lot of people who've been playing the game for a while, they forget. It's easy to forget. It's like anything when you're learning something new. So I think definitely be sure whoever is teaching the new player and the lady is just slow down and expect to take some time. So I think that'll definitely help everybody out as well when you're learning stuff. When I started learning, I actually only did 2 rounds at a time, because at the end of the second round, I felt like my head was going to explode and it was on overload. So we would only play 2 rounds. I would take a break. Sometimes we would come back in an hour, maybe the end of the day, or we leave the game up and come back the next day. So, and then I gradually just kept building up from 2 rounds to 3 rounds. Before you know it, you're playing a whole game. So I think that also helps a lot of people, because it is a lot when you're trying to learn all your numbers for your shooting, for your combat, and it's very overwhelming at first. So definitely just kind of condense it and do it in slow segments. Another thing to help make the game fun for all beginners in general too, especially in your first 5 to 10 games, you don't want to just blow out the new person and have a big massacre. You want it to be a fun game for them and be more of a close game. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, is really explain to them why you would do something, and suggest what they should do. But then also when it's your turn, explain why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe for line of sight, because a lot of things like that, it's easy to forget. But even after the first 10 games, we do it all the time. We kind of strategize, and I make my movements and I'll explain this is why I did what I did. And the other person may learn as well from you because they didn't see that and those other options. So not only but especially beginning, but during your whole gaming, I think it makes it a lot more fun too, to kind of strategize and give ideas why you did and didn't do certain things. Also, when we started, or I should say I started, Mike, he was such a much better player than I am, and he's a great strategist. Overall, he he just would crush me. So another thing that made it really fun for both of us, I would get 500 extra points than him, and it made it more of a balanced game. So it was fun for me because I felt like I was closer, but it also made it a lot fun for him because he had to think about how do I get rid of all these extra people, and ended up making him even a better player than he already was. So it was good for both of us on that. So that's another great tool or idea to help everybody out for both the beginners and the experienced players. Another thing is when women go to tournaments, from my own personal experience, when I was starting out, I did go to tournaments. I ended up stopped going to tournaments because they were no fun to me at that point. The reason they became no fun, I found out people were cheating when I was beating them. I'll be honest, I've never read the rule books, and that's another thing that can help people. Some people feel it's too overwhelming to read all the rules. Just teach them the rules. That was one of my stipulations. I told Mike I would never read the rules. It was too much for me. So he taught me everything. So I personally don't know where to find the specific rules, but I know Mike had taught me the rules because he has read the rule book. Many, many times he's read the rule book. So when I was in tournaments, I would ask questions like, can you do that? And they would say yes, or they would say, you can't do that. I'm like, but I can. I don't know where it's in the rules, but my husband, and I would point at him and tell him that, he can help you and tell you where it is. But I'm just kind of easygoing, and I'm there to have fun and just to goof off. So I would let everything pass. After the game, I would ask Mike, hey, is this true? Can you do this? And I didn't think you could. Come to find out that I was beating them because I had a huge dwarf gun line. I was beating them at the beginning, and Mike says, no, they were cheating. They can't do that. So when people were rude to me because when I was beating them, their attitude became very sour, and then I find out they're cheating, it took the fun out of it for me. And again, I think that is for really all beginner players and for women. Guys, keep in mind when you're playing in tournaments, that people are there to have fun, be nice to them. But especially if a woman's beating you, don't get sour on them, because I didn't start playing tournaments until recently because I continued to go to tournaments with Mike, and I would just watch. And I started goofing off with everybody, and I got to know everybody, and they're all like, you gotta play, you gotta play. So now I'm starting to play because it's more of a friendly, the groups that we were going to for the tournaments, everybody's a lot more laid back and, there to have a beer and just socialize and goof off and have some games. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Again, not just for women, but for all new beginners, because you'll also lose potential new players to come into the game. Also, another thing to help women get into the game, there's a lot more to it than just throwing a battle down. I personally enjoy is making all the terrain. I like to do the fields, make my crops, the forest, the rock walls, the hills, everything. To me, having all this stuff on the board, it seems more realistic and it just looks fun and it's cooler to me. So that's what makes the game fun for me. But I know other people, the other aspects that make the game enjoyable is painting. A lot of people like to paint the models, assembling them, doing different conversions and kind of things like that. So there's a lot of great things other than just throwing down a battle. Some folks really enjoy is the backstories of their particular army. So that's what gets them into it, because they're like, oh, my little guys, they drink beer and it makes them powerful and strong, or whatever the backstory is for that particular army. So I know that is really a hoot and a holler for a lot of folks too, to enjoy the game. For me, when I do make the terrain, I happen to go to a lot of craft stores and I'll kind of get inspiration and be like, ooh, we can do that and we can make this, and what if we do this? And right now I had picked up some things for mushrooms. I'm going to make a mushroom board. So I'm going to kind of put together that, and I'll be putting together how-to videos, so show you my little end product of that when we get it all done. But there is a lot more to it than just throwing a battle down. But I think the big key thing is definitely be patient for all the new people and make it fun, you know? Just don't be so serious about it all the time and just have a good time with it. And it's more of like a, you know, social gathering, like playing cards, but more advanced.
So there you have it, folks. 4 concrete tips for involving beginners in general and women in particular in the wargaming hobby. I would like to extend a special thank you now to Mike and to Karen from Dark Wizard Gaming for taking the time to send a response to us here at Grey Army Gaming. Please do check out their excellent channel, Dark Wizard Gaming. And last of all, perhaps most importantly, let me thank you for joining us here today at Grey Army Gaming, where Grey can always play.